Welcome to this week's episode. I'm Mike, this is Kristin, and this is Chris, and we're the Four Marketers. This week, we're diving into data. It's a huge topic, one that's near and dear to my heart. There are so many avenues where we can look at utilizing data. There's so many ways of tracking data. And if you look at in terms of the history of marketing, we have more data than we have ever had before. Yes. And that's exciting from my point of view.
We're like,
Yep. Particularly because data allows for decision making.
Yes.
It's that feedback element that we get that allows us and informs and influences the way we make decisions, and hopefully making the right decisions with good data. So an interesting one that we sort of were talking about a little bit earlier on was around data, and that data, it's not just numbers. You know, traditionally everyone thinks, okay, you think data and you think, okay, spreadsheets, you think databases, right? Lots of numbers going everywhere. But actually data in itself, there's so much more to it when you think about, and we think about it in terms of this, this feedback element that goes on as we do things, as we get decisions, as people interpret stuff, they're taking on all kinds of information, and from our point of view, that's data. So it's not just about us recording, you know, using Google Analytics or whatever to record a website's data, but actually when we're doing, you guys are doing your design work and stuff, the feedback you get, they're data points that allow you then to adjust the way you design.
So we don't live in the detail of the data that a business like yourself does, but data is intrinsically and critically important to us, and we look at it in two ways. One, we see data is a way that we capture feedback from clients, where if we're designing, creating a brand or a brand refresh, or we're actually just creating collateral for them, it's the ability to capture the feedback in a succinct way that gives us direction in the next step. The same applies to any sort of data. If it's clear data and it's intrinsically giving you a decision point, you can take action and correct. If it's very whimsical and non-committal, then it leaves us in a position where we have to go through further iterations. So the more that we can be tighter in the way that we request feedback, and therefore the way that we can act on it, the better. The second way that data is quite useful for us is the information that you as a business, the paid advertising style, can feedback into where market positioning is and how an existing brand or a campaign is resonating with the customer, and we can see the response in that, and then once again we can take action. So I mean, we're getting increasingly excited about the way that we can see actions taken and tracked through the whole, you know, the customer journey, and it allows us to say, oh, okay, that the way that we're expressing that engagement with the client through those visuals is working exceedingly well.
Yeah.
The messaging and the visuals on this campaign really haven't touched, or they've touched a completely different audience. So that's how we're using it.
Yeah, well, we used to do a lot of that, looking at audience testing and looking at the design, the creative, and getting in feedback and data points from different focus groups and stuff that would look at that, and we'd work out, okay, is this resonating? Is this getting across that core message? Because before spending a phenomenal amount of money on an actual rollout of an entire campaign, do a little bit of testing for a small cost, so that you know that it's working, get that little data point there, and then go tick, right, now we can do a really big campaign and be confident with it. From a content point of view, is there any content, or is there any data in terms of content you can use?
Definitely. Look, I'm a big fan of data, despite me doing all the words, is that, you know what the biggest challenge I have is that clients don't often share the data, which makes it challenging for me. And it's probably because of their inexperience with using or being able to interpret it. So like, for example, if I'm writing web pages and blogs for them, a lot of the time we'll say, hey, how are these performing? And they'll go, I don't know. And I'm like, it's a lot. And so the ones that we do get from, like as in, and harking back to one of our previous episodes where it's like the internal marketer versus the external marketer, having the internal marketer means that usually there's someone in there that's tracking some sort of analytics or some sort of website result. And that is where we get a lot of feedback. And so what we've found is sometimes we've adjusted our strategy or the way that we write because of the way that the data has reflected in the way that we've put blogs up. So for instance, we worked with a big multinational company, and we found that refreshing some of their old blogs got the most impact. So what we did was we went back all the way to like 2016 articles and things that they had written, and we went in and tore it apart, updated it, and refreshed it,
So same
and republished
content,
it.
effectively.
Yeah, but it's like modernizing it, and Google loved it. Like I think it like quadrupled to quintuple the whole like result, and they
why is
actually
that?
had it. Google loves when you've got an old URL. And you go from in the old written blog or article, and if you refresh it and update it, and it's got fresh keywords in it with an old URL, Google loves it because it feels like you're updating old content, and it really. So a lot of times people actually hire us to refresh their old blogs.
You didn't create a whole new URL. No. You actually just went through and refreshed what was already there.
So let's say it's like patient trends around queuing times, right? So they might have had 7 trends that were back in 2016. So what we'll do is we'll write a better intro, we'll refresh the 6 or 7 items, and then take some elements from it, and then put the call to action. So it's a refresh blog, republish, and then it was bringing it back to the data. Was it showed that it was more effective than writing new ones. So we spent months with them, literally going blog by blog by blog, refreshing them and updating them, and Google was loving it. And then like what it is we found that the data was showing us that hyperlinks were good. And so we were hyperlinking to all these blogs and like sending all these different backlinks and things. And all of that, and bringing it back to the point, is that the data was driving our insights. So we didn't, we wouldn't have known to do that strategy unless we had the data behind it.
I suppose the interesting one there is that it's the specific data points as well, right? Because it's not just, our website's doing well, we're getting X number of users, X number of impressions.
Yeah.
No, it's getting down to specific pages and how each one of those pages are performing. And that's the critical one where we talk about data and people tend to think in large scale about, okay, well, what's the high level numbers? And that's often from a marketing point of view, and when we're reporting back to clients, it's like we just talk about how the overall campaign is going. That's great. But the real decisions and the ability to adjust the campaign comes down to having specific data and specific data points within it that allow us to make those changes. So the fact that you've got that data per blog post, for instance, you're able to then analyze that and go, okay, great. Now we can make sure that post itself is the one that we change. So it's getting into the details and the specifics in terms of data. And we have the same thing when we look at a campaign. If we just report on the overarching campaign performance, that's nice. And so a client talks to us about, we got 5 inquiries from our Google Ads this month, or 5 people that came through from our website. That's nice, but that actually doesn't give us enough information to be able to then say, but what campaign specifically got that for you? What specific keywords? What time of the day did that come through on? What day of the week did that come through? We can't adjust the campaigns if we don't have that information. And so it's very important from a data point of view that while you might look at it in totality in terms of an aggregate, it's having that specific tracking that's so critical.
And are you seeing any trends in like the type of metrics people are using, or coming through in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, Google's making a whole lot of changes, and I think also from what we're seeing flowing back through from social media, that it's not so much about, or it's less about vanity metrics and looking at, how many impressions,
how many clicks have I got? Yay! How many people are liking me? Yeah,
absolutely. Our businesses these days are far more tuned into, what's the end result that I'm getting from the work that I'm doing? It's helpful to get some of those, because while they might be vanity metrics, they're just earlier stage metrics that are helpful for us to know that, hey, we're on track, or that we're getting X amount of impressions or engagement. That's great. That doesn't necessarily guarantee a result, but we know that at least those are working well, which then can shape how we then adjust the campaign to make sure that it's delivering the final result, but making sure that we've got that tracking the whole way through. One of the exciting things that's kind of come out too from Google in some of the recent work we've been doing is the whole transition from Universal Analytics to GA4.
Yep.
And that's allowing us some really cool capabilities now to track much more specifics. We can track cross websites and stuff as well as tracking from a lot of the campaigns and see exactly which campaign is delivering an actual conversion, which allows us to make much better decisions when it comes down to, where do we invest our money? What campaign do we put more behind because it's working for us, and which ones do we cut?
And look, I have an example. Like I found that using data on our own website is that we started noticing back in October that some of our Christmas blogs were starting to resurface and gain a lot more traction. And these are ones that I'd written like 2 or 3 years ago. And all of a sudden, it was like all these Christmas blogs were shooting right up the popularity scale, and people were spending like 9 minutes on these blogs. And so what we did was we actually thought, hey, let's take this insight and go, why are people looking at it? And we found that the most popular Christmas blogs were the ones that were going, how do we run our business while we're on holidays? And what we did is from that data is we said, okay, we'll make a holiday packages. So we called it Brief and Beach. So it's like, so you brief us in, and then we'll work on your stuff while you're on holidays. And we found this was literally from the data. It was, of course, we had our creative ideas, but we looked at the blogs and we saw what was trending. And we thought, okay, so what we did was then we put banners on those blogs and we said, are you heading away? Don't let your break your business. And we had these banners and they clicked on it and it had all these packages come up, and we've seen the data then flowing right through to those pages. And it's been incredibly successful because we've booked up all December and January with all this stuff, and it all came from data. Just knowing and seeing those spots. And this was in October. So it gave us plenty of time to go, oh, these are trending. And we acted on it. Nice.
Yeah, so the data side of things, it really does help us from that decision-making point of view. So if we looked at it from an outtake from this, what's, some insights or some sort of key actions that we can give people to take from it?
I mean, look, for me, I would just say, don't just think of data as the numbers or the metrics. And what I'm saying is look at the example I just explained, which was, I'm not a hugely number person, but I was able to use that basic information to make creative decisions, and it locked what would usually be a slow time in our business is no longer, simply because I took that. So I want everyone listening and watching to know that it's not go, oh, there's another spreadsheet or it's another thing, because that's what people tend to do, right? They go, oh, the numbers. But what you can see is if you actually look at it and work on it and use it, suddenly you can actually creatively change the way your business works for the better. So I would say, don't just see data as numbers. See it like the matrix, see it as something that you can actually apply and use for business decisions.
Look, I tend to agree. I think that the more that you can have a succinct business decision running off the data that you're receiving, the stronger your business is. And in our world, it's about getting clarity of analysis equals clarity of decision and clarity of feedback. And I think it's just so prevalent now in terms of what you can access.
Data or die, right?
The other thing is don't get overwhelmed. So sometimes a bit less is more. And narrow down the few things that you think are your key decision points and focus on them first, and then the rest can come later.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it's track everything.
Yeah.
Everything you can track it, even if you're not necessarily looking at it straight away, like right now. Make sure you've got at least the tracking capabilities in the site. From that, you can then in future set up all the different decision-making criteria based on the information coming in. And there's so much that we can work with. And the other big one is that for anyone that's got a website, if you haven't already converted across to GA4, you absolutely must do that. Absolutely now.
Google must be there.
Yeah, if you'll miss out on a whole lot of data and insights if you're not over there already, and you'll be forced to do it soon enough anyway, so may as well make the change.
Yeah. Speak to Mike at Oddball.
Mike at Oddball.
Look, that's what I do. Shameless, but the thing is, like for me, I'm what probably most people listening would be is I don't know what goes on in that sort of space. So go to the specialist who does. Yep. They can show you how to use it. It's just done.
Feed the information back.
That's it for this week.
It was very light touch. There's so much more. But
there is, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.